welcome to session 4. We've got Kristin here for Sparking Meaningful Connections.
Sounds like there's more people over there. That's okay, safe space. Oh, I just go. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my workshop. I know, tough choice because icebreakers here, meaningful conversations here, but because we're smaller, hopefully that means it'll be more fun because we can be a little bit more vulnerable, maybe. We'll see. We'll find out. To each their own. So, sparking meaningful connections. I'd first like to acknowledge the land on which we live and play and work, the land of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. This is Camp Sovereignty. If you haven't been there yet, I definitely recommend going to visit. First Nations camp up near the Botanical Gardens. And I've done a lot of learning there, and I feel like learning from First Nations is definitely connected to sparking meaningful connections in your life because they're all about community. And sometimes it feels like in the world that we live in right now, we've kind of lost touch with that. So wanted to have you imagine with me. Have you been in this situation where you're sitting on the tram, you're standing there, you're on the train, and you look around from your phone because you've been looking down too, and you look up and everyone is plugged in or looking at their phones, watching a video or scrolling up and down? Yes, all the nods, yes. So I felt the same way and literally was inspired by this episode of Hidden Brain this weekend. Was driving back from climbing with my friends at Garryward, which is the Grampians, and listening to this podcast to help kill time. And they were talking about how, similar to this anecdote of being on the train, the guy looks around and he's like, no one's talking. It's so weird. And like, I'm just going to run an experiment. And so the psychologist was basically saying how, reflecting on the fact that, yes, we've become such an independent world. We're addicted with our phones. We don't spend as much time nurturing our community, and not just the people really close to us, but there's also benefit of sparking these connections with people who are acquaintances and also even complete strangers. So I was like, oh my gosh, this resonates, especially because trying to get back into networking lately, looking for work and being like, hearing it over and over again, you're gonna get your next job through networking, connections. It's all about connections. Especially my partner, I'm just like, stop. I don't wanna, networking's icky. I don't wanna do that. But I've thrown myself out in the deep end and it's gotten a lot more easier. And then listening to this podcast, I was like, oh, this could be a fun little experiment to run as a workshop at UXCamp. So another thing that resonated with me was that ick, like talking to people we don't know feels really awkward. And that's what it felt like people felt too when I was on that stage pitching. Like, it feels so awkward. And it's so funny because we're all human-centered designers, and that's like a particular part of why usually you're super curious and you get into this space. But still, talking to strangers especially feels so awkward. And what they were saying in that podcast was a lot of it has to do with the liking gap. Like, picture yourself, child in the playground, and you're just like, no one likes me. Like, I don't think they like me. I don't want to talk to them because I'm scared they'll probably reject me. And that is an actual psychological phenomena that came up in that podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And this totally relates to talking to strangers at networking events, talking to people on the train, on the tram, and even talking to teammates sometimes. Like, how awkward can it be having small talk when you're not actually talking about work, and you have the holiday event or you have happy hour and you're like, oh God, this is like, oh, I don't want to go, So yeah, I was like, yes, this is cool. And also what they were saying in the podcast was like something to help you experiment in your own life and also at work is remembering that everyone you meet knows something you don't. And so you can wear your researcher, UX researcher cap or UX designer, whatever you call yourself, hat, and just, go out there and just go into it like an experiment and just ask them a question that you're wondering about. Someone today, when I was telling them about this pitch, was even like, they heard that, think of it as if you're talking to a friend. And so you're just inquiring and like, probing like you do in your work day to day. So yeah, Bill Nye apparently said that. And then I was also thinking, ooh, we can't just talk, Kristin. Like not everyone wants to talk, and that's not necessarily your actual job, sparking conversation. But how do I tie this back to what we do in the day-to-day as UXers? And so I felt like there was also this tie to this course that I did with Indy Young called Listening Deeply. And it centers around the fact that even as human-centered designers, when we're running research, because of all the things that we have to do when we're usability testing or interviewing, sometimes we're not even listening to what the user or the customer is saying to us because we're trying to remember every single thing that we're trying to tick off in our moderation guide. And so this was all about like, how do you go beyond that and like truly run discovery, exploratory stuff, and like let the conversation lead itself. So yeah, look her up if you haven't heard of Indy before. And that's where I got to this workshop that I just threw together last night at 11 p.m. So we'll see how it goes. Sparking meaningful conversations. So what does that mean? Taking interest and listening deeply. So I'll go through some tips that I learned and just pulled together really fast. And then we're going to do a little experiment. And it's great. We have not too many people in here, so hopefully it won't get too loud. And then it might be a little more fun to just open up. So why sparking meaningful connections is helpful to us. Number one, why we're all here, networking. And sparking meaningful connections is helpful to us as designers because we want to go from networking ick to nerding out, having fun, doing what we do in life with how we do the UXing, like getting curious about people. It's also helpful to us because customer research, it helps you build rapport. And not to say that you're going to go and ask deep questions to all your customers, but going deep a little can help you then like build up the confidence to run those user interviews, usability testing. Like sometimes when you do too much design, like all of a sudden, oh, I get to do research, and then you kind of get really nervous. You're like, oh no, I have to talk to people. So this could also help you with that. And then last but not least, collaboration. It feels like sparking more meaningful connections with people when you're starting off a meeting or you're having one-on-one can really help as well to talk about things other than the weather. What'd you get up to this weekend? How you going? And like talking about more things that you care about, because then you build these relationships that will then help benefit you in times of tension when you're collaborating with people, especially who are not designers in the day-to-day. And bonus, life is short, so make it more interesting. So part one, how do we do this? Taking interest. Taking interest is basically the opposite of small talk. Make big talk. So we could ask questions like, what are you known for? Like, what is your favorite compliment that someone's given you? Describe a time you laughed so hard you cried or snorted. Everyone's had to have an experience like that. Describe a moment someone made an impression on you. Like, who is that person? Tell me about it. Why was that? And then, what is a life story you seldom tell? Ooh, yeah. And it feels a little bit unnerving, but especially hearing about that podcast, you'd be surprised how open people can be to answering some of these questions, because we're all human. And even though we haven't been doing it as well, we all crave that connection and, crave talking about more interesting things. And it's not just extroverts, it's introverts too. Like choosing to jump out of your comfort zone for a little is beneficial. And then part two, how is listening deeply? And listening deeply is more like actively and actually listening. How many times have you been in a chat, maybe even here, where you ask them a question, they're talking, but you kind of space out, and then you look over like down there, like, oh, Joe, I want to talk to, ooh, yeah, look at that person, I want to talk to them, and you're not actually engaging in the conversation. So then you both have just lost it. So if you take some of the advice from Indy Young, this is very like simplified, but she has some examples of prompts you can ask people to help delve deeper into that conversation and their like inner mental model and state of thinking. So some examples that might be less awkward to ask in day-to-day conversation are like, you ask them the question and they're like, ooh, it seems like there's more to that story. Or instead of asking why, because why can feel a bit repetitive and kind of like a 5-year-old's asking you, why? You could be like, oh, because? And just let them fill in that blank like you do in user interviews. What went through your mind there? Where did that come from? And in what way? And trying to like keep them in like their own thinking instead of being like, tell me more about you. So, as mentioned, this is a workshop, so you've all opted in to participate. So we are going to practice, but before we do, any initial thoughts, emotion words that you want to throw out there for how you're feeling before we actually jump into this? Excited. Ooh, excited. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, terrified. That's why we're here, to practice. Curious. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll go with all of this, like a big scale of emotion. So what I'm gonna have you do is find someone ideally that you don't know or you've only spoken to them like a little bit. Ideally. I think that's possible because we don't have like that big of a group. If we have odd numbers, I can chat with someone, or you can form a 3. And because we're limited on time, want one person to do the asking and one person to share. So like pretty easy also. You can opt to pick one or the other. And then also, if you are the person asking, your job is to, because you don't have to answer the question, your job is to, as that person gets deep, you actually listen deeply and you use some of those prompts from Indy Young to then dig deeper into the conversation. And then we'll stop it and then we'll see, what people are learning, and then that's it. So yeah, I'm going to keep this up on the screen. So like, again, pick one of these questions, or if you have a particular big talk question that you like to ask, go for it. And then those are the prompts that you can look at to remember to probe into that conversation. So I didn't really think that far on like how to split up people. But yeah, let me give you like 30 seconds to find someone you haven't talked to yet, and then just sit next to each other. Okay. New friends. New friends. New friends. Ooh. Still. Sweet. So, can you believe it? You were chatting for 10 minutes. How did that go? Yeah? Any reflection words that you want to spit out compared to especially how you felt going in? How do you feel now? Anyone just like double tap? Positivity. Oh, sorry. Positivity. Yeah. Everyone's so excited. It's like bubbling. Yeah. Fun and easy. Ooh. Yay! Engaging and insightful. Cool. I was also curious about, going into this, literally just inspired by a podcast this weekend and don't know everything. So I was wondering, in that same vein of being nervous about talking to strangers, does anyone else have any ideas for how you go about talking to people that you don't know yet or don't know as well? Just do it. Yeah, just say hi. Or smile. Wow.
I find these sort of events, the meetups, the industry events, are the best place to practice meeting new people.
Yeah.
That's why people are there. And so it takes a lot of pressure off, because I have never ever had anyone react badly to going up to them and say, "Hi, I'm Ali. What brings you here today?"
Yeah, I like that. It's like everyone's coming to that meetup for a reason also. So remembering that, and then you feel less awkward. You're like, "Ah, hey, you're standing alone. What's up?"
Yeah, I feel like finding that thing that the other person is super interested in and letting them just talk. And that's a good way to, like, especially if, because I'm an extrovert naturally. And if I'm meeting an introvert and I'm trying to find what they're interested in to allow them space to feel comfortable in conversation, especially because I'm so aware of my extroverted energy taking over. But also I feel like when you're in outside of your own usual context, like you were saying, like when you come to these meetups and everyone's out of their usual bubble and it feels like because everyone's a little bit uncomfortable, they're a bit more open to finding some comfort with someone else. So that's always nice as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh, I'm wondering, should we throw around the mic for the recording? We're still good on time.
While talking to Rory, I just realized that in meetups, we generally give our introduction, our professional introduction, but then we just started talking about our hobbies, and then we started talking like she is into baking, and we just discussed how as a user experience designer you'll see your journey as a baker and which step you like the most. And then suddenly we came up with this idea as a business idea that maybe one day she can have her own recipes and she can hire bakers under her and has a proper user research and journey. So maybe when we talk about something that people really like instead of just professional repetitive talks, that is something that's more energetic, and yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Someone else had a hand. Last one.
I was just going to say, from a user experience point of view, it's so nice when someone comes up to you and says hi. Like, it is so lovely. I can't think of a time when it's not. So if you're afraid, it feels good on the other side.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It also, you all made it really easy to run a workshop. I was talking to them outside and I was like, all I have to do is now just like watch them and we're done. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining me today. Don't clap yet. I just want you to walk away with this, with the fact that now you have some tools in your toolkit as a human, as a designer. We're about to have tea where there's like drinks afterwards. So hopefully that helps you feel less nervous about going out there and having conversations and then bringing it back to your teams and even like partners, families, friends, Yeah, so that's it. Thank you.